Yep.
The following is a presentation of iRacing.com Motorsport Simulations on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to those of you watching tonight on iRacing Live, Facebook, and YouTube. This is LSRTV's coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking, live tonight from Kentucky Speedway in Sparta, Kentucky. I am James Pite, and I am joined tonight in the booth by the lovely and talented Cisco Scaramuzza, who has decided to do double duty and has brought the production trailer up here in the booth with us. So pulling out all of our cameras and our cool shots and talking. Cisco's going to be a busy man this evening, as will these drivers, because this place is just so bumpy, I think, more than anything else, especially with the old service. When I think of Kentucky in the sim, I think of navigating the bumps, especially on corner exit, because they can unsettle the rear end so easily and make the cars so tricky to drive around this place.
And this is a place where if you lose that or you have that lapse in concentration, James, it can do a lot to that lap time. If you're not paying attention, you hit a bump, you can go straight into the exit of turn 4, you can hit the concrete barrier out there, you can hit the barrier going down the backstretch if you're not careful. Watch turn 2 exit tonight. I think we're going to see something similar to Texas, where that's going to be the trouble turn. I saw it a little bit in IS over the past week. I saw it in A Fixed, and I have to think that's going to be the trouble place for these guys.
Would not be surprised if you are right. Now, if we take a look at the point standings, we've already got a good handful of the playoff grid locked up when we get to Chicagoland in September to start the playoffs here in the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series. But we also have some drivers that are still sitting right on the edge who could benefit greatly from a win. Your Lionel Callistos, Ross Catos, Shane Ewings, Austin Coops and company. All those drivers looking for the opportunity to get a win and lock themselves in so they don't have to spend the next month and a half sweating it out as to whether or not they'll be in the playoffs when we get to it.
Yeah, and what's interesting here is just how close this points battle is. It was at a point Austin Coop was something like 50 points back, AJ Browning even more than that, but nowadays Coop 25, Browning 37. It's consistency getting it done, and what's interesting is the mindset coming out of the camp, out of the Shane Ewing camp, out of the AJ Browning camp. That's what these guys are going for, is consistency. They're not trying to win their way in, or I mean, it would certainly help there, Pike, but at the end of the day, consistency wins championships, or in this case, it might get some of these guys into the championships. But one thing to note, Nelson Rivera, he's above that cut line right now. He's only 9 points to the good. That's not where I would want to be sitting right now, Pike, with only 9 races to go till the playoffs.
It's a little bit of a tight space, I think, as is. And also of note here, Austin Coop has laid down a really nice time. One of the best of the drivers in that sort of bunch of people right around the cutoff line. Coop currently starting 8th here with about a minute left in qualifying. So if that holds, that'll be a really nice top 10 starting spot for the 6 machine. And though there is room to race at Kentucky, I think track position is always going to be valuable to a point here. And especially if you're up there already, it means you get to save tires, because that's really what we'll be watching more than anything else. Outside of the bumps, tire wear at this place is critical.
It absolutely is, Pike. And ultimately, it's going to come down to how these guys save their tires. You can do a lot here staying out, maybe trying to stay out during the wrecks and such like that, but because of how bumpy this track is, and you're out there on old tires, you're basically got a 90% shot to spin the wheels on the restart if you aren't careful. And that, if you do that here, you're going to check everyone up, and it's very hard to drive offline here at the Kentucky Speedway. You do that, there's going to be cars wrecked, there's going to be people angry, and we didn't think there was going to be any more anger after Sonoma, but this track could bring it tonight. We'll have to watch out and see how these drivers do, not only with the temperatures in the cars, but the temperature inside the helmet.
or in the proverbial chair or wherever some of our drivers are racing this evening. That's going to be something we have to watch. Tempers could flare. It got a little bit heated 2 weeks ago at Sonoma. They've had some time to cool off, but it might not necessarily be enough. But it's enough for our pre-race show now, and we'll go ahead and move to the starting grid and see what's going on there. Ashton Crowder picks up the first pole of 2017 with a 29.298 on the board. Trevor Rapallo, Daytona winner in February to kick off the season, starts from the second position. Brandon Bowie will roll off from third this evening. Anthony DeBarro, still looking for that first win this season, will start from fourth. David Comstock, who got the win at Sonoma last time out, will start from fifth. David Washington, who's been up in the playoff grid and been near the top of the point standings all season long, starts sixth. And it's Dylan Jones starting seventh. Austin Coop eighth. Giovanni Bramante with one of his best qualifying times of the season starting ninth. And Nick Silver to round out your top 10.
Then 11th place is going to go to Andrew Freenash in the 47. 12th is going to go to Sean Boundy. 13th to Ross Cato. 14th going to go to Corey A. Wolf, one of the newcomers to the series. He's trying to make his way up the point standings. He sits 14th. 15th going to go to Shane Ewing, right in that fight. Right at the cut line for the point. 16th going to be Doug Roth. 17th going to go to Gabe Wood in the 09. 18th going to go to Dwayne Vincent, the veteran. 19th going to go to Colson Bermudez. And Mitch Rollo, making his series return to RSR, is going to start 20th.
21st is where you'll find the 04 Braden Whitaker to start this evening. Mike Kelly begins tonight from 22nd. Nelson Rivera, who we talked about on the cut line there earlier in pre-race, starts 23rd tonight. Sean Casto in that Speed Energy machine will begin from 24th. Scott Walter will start tonight's race from 25th. Last car to take time was Carl Shedd, the 45 in the playoffs. Will start from 26th. And not taking time was Lionel Calisto, Kyle Barnes, John Abbott, Nathan Little, and Douglas Wyatt. They will start 27th through 31st respectively to round out the field for tonight's Full Throttle Cup Series event here at Kentucky Speedway, the newest track on the Monster Energy Cup Series calendar, even though they've had a race now for 6 years. But this is a track originally built in 1999. Another one of the many mile-and-a-halfs you see on the series. Will go for 125 laps tonight for a total of 187.5 miles. Turns 1 through 2, you've got 17 degrees of banking, but in 3 and 4, you have 14 degrees of banking. So you can't quite race these tracks, or these corners rather, the same. A little bit like the reconfigured Texas in that regard. You have 8 to 10 degrees of banking on the front straight, depending on whether or not you're running towards the apron or up on the wall, and 4 degrees of banking on the back straight here on what is a relatively flat racing Kentucky Speedway, I think.
Yeah, it is, and we talk about these cookie cutter tracks. Each of them have their own little different foibles. Of course, we see the pit access road. These guys won't have to worry about that tonight, off to the left side here, but one of the bumpiest tracks, but still very bad fast. And for these cars, these guys are going to watch those splitters, and if you hit that apron, you're going to be in a whole heap of trouble.
Yeah, you hit the apron, you're going to go up, you're going to collect people, and it won't make for a fun night for anybody that gets caught up in those accidents. But happy to have you with us here on LSRTV to get the green flag for the 17th race of the Full Throttle Cup Series season. Off and underway here at Kentucky, and Ashton Crowder jumps out to about a 2-car length lead to get things going. Then you've got Trevor Rapallo and Brandon Bowie side by side. Rapallo, I think, got a little bit loose on corner entry there. Didn't quite get through it the way he wanted to, and that knocked David Washington back a spot. Comstock comes underneath him on the inside, should grab one spot away from him. So now you've got Comstock coming underneath the 99 of DeVaro and trying to make his way up towards the front. He'll try and work on Rapallo, but it's Crowder out in front, and then Bowie, and then Rapallo, and then Washington, and then, well, actually, no, Comstock, and then you've got Washington and DeVaro racing really, really hard as they go through turn 1 for the first time.
Yeah, those guys going at it in front of them, but single file for the most part. And then you got side by side right behind him, Dylan Jones to the inside, Austin Coop. He's going to get the pass done nearly. Jones going to clear him this time, and he's not going to go in front of him here. He's going to stay in that middle lane. Austin Coop now under attack from the 37 of Bramante, and that driver going to fall in behind here. So nothing going to happen early on. Everyone single file for the most part in front of him, and looking to maybe cruise a little bit, but David Comstock looking to the inside just a little bit. You see that driver in front of him, Joe Rapallo, that bright yellow car not too far up the road, a little bit from Gio, and we'll have to see what happens with the 42.
Now we've got a battle here. Looks like DeBarro trying to go underneath Comstock, and you see all of these drivers have already gone up to the second group. That inside lane is not the fastest at Kentucky. We've heard from many drivers throughout the years that you just can't quite get the drive off the corner that you'd like in order to make running the very bottom of this racetrack work. So usually it's between groups 2 and 3 that you see most of these drivers running. You see Comstock got a little out of shape in the corner there, so he'll lose a spot to DeBarro and then maybe a spot to Washington here as well if he can't quite get the drive off the corner that he needs. So those two will go up 2 spots. For Paulo settled nicely into third, and DeBarro loses it in the corner. Is he going to be able to hang on to it? No. Sideways, he does get it corrected, but he just got loose off of corner exit in turn 4, and just like that, we have our first yellow flag of the evening.
And I thought it was going to be turn 2 rather, but turn 4 exit going to be the victim of the cause of the first caution. We got the overhead shot here in the 99. Well, he just got a little bit loose, and Dave Washington, nowhere to go, just plowed straight through him, and you see the damage on the right rear of the 99. First caution out very early here, and only about 4 laps in or so, Pike, but already under the first yellow, and he was just in the way of traffic, so they decided to throw it.
Just a little bit too close for comfort, especially right there at the exit of turn 4 where cars can come down pit road and maybe try and avoid wrecks. Maybe crazy things happen, but just not a risk that our admins at RSR wanted to take. And it seems like the staying out risk is not one that anybody wants to take either, save for David Comstock, who is going to stay away from pit road, and one other taker, Nick Silver, is going to stay out as well. Beyond that, looks like everybody is coming down for 4 tires and fuel.
And it's not a bad idea this early, Pike. You have to think, though, we are only 4 laps in. Someone could gamble on tires if they think we're going to have a couple more yellows. We'll have to see what the thought process is for some of these drivers. But cars down pit road, 4 cars staying out. Rivera, Casto, Silver, and as you mentioned, Comstock. They're going to gamble. They're going to stay out on those old tires. And then for everyone behind them, it's going to be a case. Brandon Bowie off early, 2 tires. Also 2 tires going to go to the 34. Sean Bounty get a pickup massively. Then everyone, for the most part, 4 tires. Ewing took 2, Bermudez took 2, Rollo took 2, and Wood took 2, and they're trying to jump themselves up the order, and Kelly took 2, everyone else 4.
So, talking about strategy here, a lot of different ones. I think you've got some drivers that decided to stay out and take advantage of the lack of laps run to make things happen. You've got some drivers that took 2 tires to try and gain a little bit of track position. Shane Ewing, we know, he's near the cutoff line and has been trying to find his way up through the field. Sean Boundy is there. Nelson Rivera, one of the drivers right on the cutoff line, is going to stay out and gain all that track position, go from 12th to, I believe, 4th, if my math is correct. So, this falls right in that kind of weird window of drivers not really having too many laps on their tires, but enough to where you at least have to consider coming down pit road, and that's split the field up pretty nicely. We've got all sorts of different strategies in play through the first 10 positions here. Yeah,
we do, and for Nelson Rivera, let's be honest, Mike, we haven't seen a whole lot of him this season. We've seen him up front a little bit, but apart from that, he's been towards the back for the most of it, so it's really nice to see that Verizon car. A different number than we're used to seeing. I'm used to seeing the 7 on there, but apparently a little mix-up because Douglas Wyatt's in the 7 and Nelson Rivera's in the 30, so a little confusion. We do have a couple new numbers. The 96, Mitch Rollo taking over that number and his rightful number in this series. Normally, Anthony DeBarro's been driving that entry, Pike, but Rollo came back, wanted his number back, and apparently shuffled up everyone else because Rivera also, as well as Wyatt. A little bit of programming notes for you there.
Yeah, and so that's not anything you need to be double taking if you're a regular watcher of all the action here on LSRTV in the Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking. That is just one of those kind of weird housekeeping things. So I guess if you want to blame anybody, blame Rollo, but nothing too crazy because the paint schemes are still the same. That's, I think, the most important thing. And you see Rivera's got his classic black Verizon Fios paint scheme on board tonight. Boundy's got the Sprite machine that we know so well from all his seasons competing here in the Full Throttle Cup Series and so on and so forth. going to take a moment here while we're under the yellow flag and while we get the lights off of the pace car to remind you that tonight's broadcast of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series is brought to you by Joel Real Timing, the official timing software of LSRTV. Whether you spend your time on the sim behind the wheel, on the pit box, or from the spotter stand, JRT is the go-to iRacing timing and scoring analytics software. Get yourself a basic download for free or get the pro version today at joel-real-timing.com. JRT, a handy tool here used by drivers in the Full Throttle Cup Series and some of us here at LSRTV alike when we hop onto the sim and race alongside all of you. Restart here, though, is going to come on lap 9, and it will be David Comstock leading the field to green, followed by Nick Silver, Sean Casto, Nelson Rivera, Brandon Bowie, Sean Boundy, Ashton Crowder, David Washington, Shane Ewing, and Dylan Jones. That'll be your top 10 for the first restart of the evening, which once again will come on lap 9. Gonna see if Comstock can get a good jump here, and also we'll need to be watching the tire strategy that we saw shake out. A lot of different ones now here in play at the front of the field, and it could shape the long green flag run that we know will come. Green flag back out in the air. Now, Comstock away. Good jump for him. 2 to 3 car lengths. Didn't look like Casto got a great jump at all. He's under fire from Bowie and from Crowder, who both try and look underneath him. And Crowder actually got to the rear bumper of Bowie and got him unsettled and got underneath the 44, trying to take the spot away. Couldn't really make anything happen. Meanwhile, Silver's cleared all of them, gone to second, and it's a whole host of cars in this battle pack and a yellow flag somewhere on track. Second cars of the night out here on lap 9.
And it's going to be Whitaker in the 04, the Cougar not working out early for Whitaker. We're going to have to pull up the replay, see what happened. But everyone got really bunched up, it looks like. And we'll take a look from the overhead on the 04, see what happened. It looks like they all stacked up coming to the green flag here. He went 3 wide. That's Kalisto, and then the 16 of Corey Wolf on the outside. And the 04, I guess, discovered that, hey, you can't run that inside line in Kentucky because it did not work. The car was not able to settle the weight down, and around he went. There was another car also in the wall. I was trying to see who that was. I believe it was the 7 of Douglas Wyatt, so it doesn't work out for either of them. And as such, second caution out already.
Yeah, a lot of damage there to the right front of that NGK Spark Plugs Toyota Camry that Douglas Wyatt is piloting tonight, so he'll need to come down pit road for repairs. Doesn't look like the front end of the 04 is in that much of bad shape, though, so I think he'll be okay, and that's the key here at Kentucky. You're going fast enough. You need the front end aerodynamics to work for you. You don't necessarily have to worry so much about the rear end, and if you get a little fender bender here and there, you'll be okay, but the front end, you want to try and keep that clean as much as you possibly can.
You do, and this is one of those tracks where we mentioned it before. You know, you're bouncing around all over this place. The surface, of course, really worn out, or this particular version of the Kentucky Speedway surface, extremely worn, Pike, and as a result, we talk about these splitters on these cars. You start doing damage to that, you're going to start losing downforce, and as a result, you're not going to be able to properly make the turns, and you're going to start bouncing even more all over the place and end up in the wall before you know it. And as the 04 found out, there is a specific line you want to take through here. You don't want that bottom set, that very bottom line. It's almost like a Michigan in that sense, Pike.
Because you just can't quite get the run off the corner that you want, and the grip levels aren't really there. The rubber usually tends to build here right in the center, especially of the corners, so that's more often than not where you'll want to be if you want to try and find speed. And you also can kind of ease up on the wheel a little bit too and save your tires, especially if you run one of those higher lines and make things happen. So didn't really see much shuffling there over the course of that last lap. We saw Casto couldn't quite get going off of the tires, so I think he'll want to try and get a better restart on the next go around here, but he almost gets a free pass, I think, in a sense, because we didn't even make it more than half a lap before the yellow flag came out once again.
Yeah, and David Comstock's probably going to be super happy in that 42 because, hey, he's leading laps right now, and he doesn't have to worry too much. He's well into the chase. He's got himself a couple wins already. So that 42 just out here, maybe trying to scout out the rest of the field or maybe try and get some bonus playoff points. But either way, David Comstock doing well early, and the strategy's working out for him, and it's also working out for Rivera because, hey, the net gain is very high so far for that 30. He started in in the 23rd position. He's still 6th right now. Even after that restart, he's probably going to lose a couple more, but if he can make those tires last, it's definitely going to be a benefit to that 30, that strategy call he made early.
Get to see if he's got a little bit of horsepower and a good setup underneath the car as well. Lights still up on the pace car. Just kind of looking through this group here. I think we probably should spend a moment talking about Ashton Crowder, especially since we've seen him up towards the front of the field in points and has been very good at qualifying over the course of this season, but hasn't really had a good long race come together his way. So I wonder, could this be the chance that Crowder needs? Because remember, you know, so long as you're top 30 in points and you have a win, you can make it into the playoffs and make things happen. So if Crowder can get a win tonight, it would make a world of difference for his playoff bid come September.
And I honestly think for Ashton Crowder, what he has to do, he has to chain together just a solid race. No drama, no accidents, nothing to worry about in terms of the out-of-car politics at all. Crowder needs to just sit down, have a nice, calm race, because that's ultimately what did him in at USR, and it could very well what do him in here in RSR, considering the circumstances. Crowder needs to sit down, he needs to keep his head on straight, and he needs to just go out there and have a solid race. Doesn't even need to win, but I think for the confidence level for that 27, keep yourself out of trouble, go out there and just put on a good show.
Build a baseline and create a foundation from which you can go on and make great runs happen on a consistent basis week after week after week. I think Crowder's got the ability to do it. He just hasn't had some of the luck, and I think you're right, some of the patience that you need in order to get to that point that you see the likes of Washington and Comstock and Eberhardt and company tend to be out on a week-in, week-out basis. Restart here is going to come for the second time on lap 14 when we get to it. Comstock, your leader, then Silver, Casto, Bowie, and Crowder, your top 5. Rivera will restart 6th. And then Boundy, Ewing, David Washington, and Colson Bermudez cracking the top 10. First time we've seen him up towards the field, at least up towards this pointy end of the field, since Martinsville in April. So a potential good run for the 14 here forthcoming if he can keep going throughout the rest of the evening. Pace car, though, will go ahead and pull back down to pit road. It will be Comstock who will get the green and lead the field back to the stripe. Another good restart for him. Another struggle for Casto. Can't quite get going on the restarts. Silver does a nice job, though, and make things happen. He'll go to second immediately. Looks like, though, Boundy was the one who ended up the big loser. He's got everybody stacked up on the inside as Nelson Rivera was able to go to the outside, and now Boundy will be under fire from Shane Ewing as they come down the back.
Boundy has got a rear view mirror full of the whole field, and they're going to take him 3 wide. Washington down to the inside. That's not really the move I'm used to seeing out of the 98, but he's deciding Boundy's got to get out of the way soon here. They're starting to pass on the outside. There goes Ewing in the 32, and that was nearly huge problems for the 34. He's going to hold on to it now, never get close to the 14. He's going to hold on to it as they make their way through too. The 34 of Sean Boundy. Nope, they're going to go 3 wide again, so Pike, they ain't done yet.
Not done yet, trying to make sure they don't make any contact. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, Brandon Bowie's gotten around Ashton Crowder and Nick Silver and gone up to the second spot. So 44 starting to charge back now that we get some green flag laps under our belt. Ewing is trying to get up and get through the corner, but Bermudez gets underneath him. So Bermudez with another fast car up 2 spots since the restart. I think that 14 might have something for everybody at the front of the field, but he's got to keep all 4 tires in the same direction. Nearly lost it there coming out of turn 2, so needs to make sure he keeps that car straight and narrow and not too loose. Meanwhile, a little bit further back, battle here for position. Austin Coop, David Washington going for the 10th spot. Coop needs points, needs to lock himself into the playoffs here. A pass on Washington, it wouldn't be everything, but it certainly would be a good building block towards a strong finish here tonight.
And talking to Austin Coop in the last couple of weeks, is Washington still going to hang tough on the outside? Coop is in this series for this very reason, to go out there and race guys like Dave Washington, guys like Dylan Jones, you know, the top level of the sim racers here. Jones, a former peak antifreeze driver. Scoop's going to get a little bit loose there, so it's not going to work. And as a result, 3, almost 4 possible corporate teammates between Aegis and PowerTech going to go by on the outside. Now the 9, Trevor Rapallo, up on that high side there, trying to make the pass as well. But the 47 of Freenosh trying to do everything he can. He's going to power off too, and it's not going to be enough. Now Rapallo looking to the middle. No, he's going to push his teammate down the backstretch.
Meanwhile, at the front of the field, Brandon Bowie has caught David Comstock, and we should have a battle here for the race lead because it's been about 1 to 2 tenths per lap that Bowie's been beating Comstock by at the stripe every single lap since we got the green flag here for the second restart. 44 looking like he's trying to search for lanes a little bit there, but that thing's really hooked up on corner exit. Comstock will try and defend for a bit, but I'm not quite sure how long he'll be able to hold on because Bowie's clearly got the faster car at this point, and as it stands, it's just a moment of when Bowie can get the race lead, not if.
Yeah, Bowie got a great run out of 4, closing in on the Gary Mercer trucking machine of David Comstock. Yep, he's going to look to the inside, and he's going to jump down there and maybe push a little bit up, try and get into that middle lane, that second groove. He's got a good run. Can Comstock get the corner off run? Yes, he will. And they're going to go even up here as they head into turn 3. Comstock doing everything he can on the outside, and as a result, Ashton Crowder starting to come into this picture. He wants a shot at that race lead as well.
Bowie now to the point. Lead change here. 44 to the front, and that Elwood Designs Ford Fusion. Comstock, though, not giving it up for a second. Still right there on the rear bumper of the 44, and you're right. Crowder was able to come back into this race for the lead as Bowie and Comstock went at each other. So Crowder trying to creep up on third, and then there's a bit of a gap back to Nick Silver. Maybe about half a second, maybe 6 tenths as they cross the line, and a bit of a gap between Silver and the 52 of Sean Casto, who didn't quite get the greatest of restarts, but has managed to keep his position where he was. It's Bounty, I think, that's really fallen a little bit here since the restart. Now under fire from Washington, who's trying to go get in the 9th position, but 34 restarted, I believe, 5th or 6th, somewhere in there, already back to the 9th spot and going back further. 34 not with the greatest of setups at the moment. He's not as fast as his position would indicate.
Yeah, the 34 even got a little loose, but he's going to chop block Dylan Jones in the 11, and yeah, he's going to stay in the lane there. Jones looking for the opportunity to drop below that yellow line. Not out of bounds line here. You can go down there, just got to make sure you don't make contact coming back up on track, and precisely what Jones wanted to do. He's going to get in that preferred lane, and Sean Bounty cast it out to the outside, and he's going to lose a little bit of time. He'll try and see if we get anything on the cutback. Not going to happen, though, but the 98 now after the 32 as well, and meanwhile, battle for that second place position. David Comstock's got a rearview mirror full of Ashton Crowder.
Crowder trying to get down to the inside of the 42, has the nose there. The 27 machine now underneath Comstock, who won 2 weeks ago at Sonoma, the last time we raced here on LSRTV. Oh man, big time slide move from Crowder as they came through the corner. Gets up in front of the 42 though, so there it is. Crowder up to second. Now we'll try and hunt down Brandon Bowie for the race lead. Next on the list would be Nick Silver. He may have gained a little bit on Comstock since the drop of the green flag, but it's not that much, I think, that he's gained on Comstock. There's some time. So Comstock will have a bit of a chance to regroup here and try and find some speed, but Crowder and Bowie, class of the field at the moment.
And Colson Bermudez, oh, never mind, yellow flag going to come out, and just had a pass there, but it looks like problems with Kyle Barnes in the number 15, damage on the front nose of the LSRTV Camry, and let's find out what happened on the replay.
Take a moment here to look at the replay. He's got a good amount of damage there on the right front corner of his machine, and it looks like he got up into the wall there a little bit here, trying to work the replay and figure out exactly what happened here. But trouble for Kyle Barnes, and not the way you want to start your night here if you're trying to make a charge for victory at Kentucky.
And just slight contact with the 37. They were both a little bit loose coming off the corner. Turned the 15 straight in the wall. And Barnes had it locked up here, and he tried to get it back going here. And, yep, the yellow flag was going to fly for that. So Kyle Barnes was just trying to stay out of traffic there, and they did have to throw the yellow flag for that. But he's going to get it back under power here. And now we look to see pit road. They're on the backstretch right now. We had a long enough green flag run here where I think, Pike, these guys are going to be headed down taking 4 fresh tires.
That would be my thought as well, but you never know. Some of these drivers here in the Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking can throw you some curveballs every once in a while. So be curious to see if anybody decides to throw a curveball here. Doesn't look like it, though, at the front of the field. Bowie leads them in, and they just all follow suit behind that 44, and it looks like just about the whole of the top 20 are going to come in and just make sure they get 4 tires and fuel and just hope that they don't have any issues and that they have quick pit stops.
Goodyear's going to be handing out the tire bills for this one, because I think everyone's going to want 4 fresh tires after that. I don't think we'll see any 2-tire strategies. A couple cars are going to stay out, though, so we'll have to see what the numbers look like there, or the pit thing could just be goofing up on me. But either way, everyone into their box for the most part. Right side's up on the 27. Waiting to see. Nope. Everyone did come down pit road, so it's just the changing of the pit boxes. But either way, Austin Coop took 2, and he's going to win the battle off pit road. 44 also going to get second. Crowder to third. Comstock to fourth. But Austin Coop, he wanted 2 tires. He wanted that lead. I don't know, Pike. Do you buy it?
I mean, I know he definitely took 2 tires, so I buy the fact that he took 2 tires, because that's how he got out in front of the field. But yeah, that'll be an interesting one to see. We'll have to watch and see what happens with the 6 car and how he restarts. But yeah, the first car out on pit road, and I believe the only one who did anything of the sort as far as pit strategy goes. Looks like everybody behind him took 4 tires, because I don't see much shuffling in the running order between the drivers who came down pit road. So we'll see what happens when we get back, Green. But while we have a moment, we're going to go side by side and go LSRTV nonstop for you, so you don't miss a moment of the action here at Kentucky. And in the meantime, we'll remind you that you're watching LSRTV, the voice of sim racing. Welcome back here to LSRTV's coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series, presented by Gary Mercer Trucking, live from Kentucky. Getting ready to get our restart here on lap 30. Austin Coop will lead the field to green after taking 2 tires. Everybody else in the field looks like they took 4 on this last yellow flag. So Coop trying to play pit strategy to get out and get some track position. Off he goes with a solid restart from the 6 machine. Bowie there kind of stacked it up on the outside, didn't get the greatest of restarts. Crowder is going to be able to get underneath him after getting a very solid restart himself. So here comes the 27, trying to find his way under the 44, but 44 should be able to carry the speed off the top side down the back straightaway and hang on to that position for now. But for how long? That's the real question.
Yeah, Crowder staying to the inside here. He's going to look into turn 3, and meanwhile, David Comstock right on the back bumper of the 44. Bowie, a little bit of a wiggle out of the 44. He got out of line, and now the 4 or no, the 14 of Bermudez is going to jump to the inside. They're 3 wide across the line, and they're going to make it work somehow. And Bowie gets the short end of the stick on that restart, goes all the way back to 5th.
That is a car to watch out for. The 14 of Colson Bermudez, who's driven through this field from 19th up to 5th. One of the fastest cars in the field so far. Meanwhile, up at the front of this race, Crowder's managed to already close the gap that Coop created on the restart down to nothing. Here comes Crowder underneath Coop, trying to make his way below the 6 machine, and Crowder will be there. Won't get the lead at the stripe, but as they go into what it should be Ashton Crowder's P1 spot to take, there he goes. So Crowder to first, Coop back to second. Now he'll have to watch out for Comstock, who runs third.
Yeah, Comstock got through all that traffic, and now sights set on the 6 of Austin Coop as they dive into turn 3 right now. How about Dave Washington? He's up to 5th place already. Got a great restart rather, and he's been flying through the field. So now the 42, though, right in front of those guys, it looks like Washington got a little loose out of 4, and he's going to have to deal with the 44 Bowie right on the back bumper, and Bowie probably not happy with that restart. He wants to start getting these position backs in soon.
But the question is, how quickly do you try and grab all those spots back, and how much do you press, and how hard do you go with the tires, and how do you manage all of that? There's a lot of variables, I think, that you have to take into consideration. Meanwhile, Comstock now underneath Coop, so the 2 tires beginning to fade for that 6 machine. Comstock had him at the line, up to second. Colson Bermudez is there trying to grab the 3rd spot from the 6 machine, and that 14 car, that thing is a fast machine. I have a feeling it won't be too long before we see Bermudez mixing it up at the front of the field for the race lead.
Yeah, 14 going to dive to the inside here of Austin Coop. The 2 tires not working for the moment, and got him out of the mess that was about 12th to 15th back in this field here. And I say it's a mess because we look back right there right now, and you got the 47 going side by side with Vincent in the 13. You got Ewing, you got the 99 of DeBarro, and you got the 2 of Kelly. They're all over the place. That's a battle pack if ever I've seen one.
There comes Washington now looking underneath Coop, trying to make things happen. So 6 car going backwards once more. Washington now underneath Bowie there. And then you're right, everybody's kind of strung out up to Kelly and Frenars and Ewing and Dwayne Vincent's there. Anthony DeBarro's in that mix. They're all together. They're not really running side by side much, but they're all there, which means that if anybody slips up, there's not a lot of room for people to avoid any sort of mistakes. And if anybody slips up in the wrong spot, that could be a really big wreck really quickly.
Yeah, and the way this race has gone so far, these guys need a really good green flag run to really feel out their cars and be able to make moves. Is the 44 of Brandon Bowie going to go by Austin Coop in the 6? So now Coop back to 6th in the 6. It makes it a little bit easier for the scorers out there. But Ashton Crowder, meanwhile, has opened up a huge gap, about half a second, all the way to David Comstock back in 2nd. And Comstock driving away a little bit, but Bermudez keeping them honest here as they head out of turn 2 and doing a great job nonetheless. That 14, like you said, though, has been on an absolute tear.
27 and the 14 have been the hardest chargers, I think, in this field, it seems like. Though, Crowder's been up at the front of the field for the good chunk of it, but he's really been on it on all these restarts and has jumped back up towards the front of this field as soon as he possibly can. So, Comstock, I think that car looks like it's a little bit better on the long run. I think there's more consistent speed with the 42, which, it's kind of the sort of way that David Comstock races regularly here on LSRTV. So, wouldn't be surprised to see him start gaining some time back on Crowder if we got a long green flag run. But that's the problem, Cisco. We haven't had one. 38 laps in, and I think the longest we've gone is maybe 14 without a yellow. So we don't really know who's got a strong long run car yet, and we just kind of have to wait and see what happens and watch how this plays out.
And ultimately, it's going to be a case where these guys, depending on what kind of changes they made to the ratio and the offset for the steering for these cars, that could play a huge dividend on who's burning up their tires and, well, who's taking it nice and easy. We know the 42 can save tires. We know the 98 can. Colson Bermudez, well, never mind. So much for saving tires. Yellow back out on track, and it's going to be problems for possibly the 16 of Corey A. Wolf. Big damage on the 16.
A lot of nose damage there to the number 16 machine, trying to see what happened here on the replay, but it's a nose that's cracked in pretty significantly, and that car is just going to come down pit road, and I think he's just going to try and get the damage fixed up as soon as he can, regardless of whether or not he'll get the EOL penalty for coming in under a closed pit road.
And Mitch Rollo had absolutely nowhere to go in that accident. We saw the 04 come up the track ever so slightly right into the 16. Mitch Rollo nowhere to go, so the debut not going quite the way the 96 wanted to. He mentioned before the race here today, James, that he wasn't terribly confident because he hasn't driven the car in about 6 months. And unfortunately for Rollo, nothing he could do there. But I guess the good news for Goodyear is, well, everyone's going to be buying 4 more tires down pit road.
4 tires and fuel, that's what you would think. And I think the surprise of very few people, everybody comes down in and gets tires once again. So folks at Akron making a killing here, and Ashton Crowder will lead them all down to pit road for 4 tires and fuel, just watching to see if anybody manages to screw up their pit road entry, because that's always the biggest thing here on the sim. Make sure you get in and you don't overshoot or undershoot your pit, and you'll be able to get out cleanly and for the most part preserve where you came in. So Crowder going to come in, make things happen. It looks like we've got a few takers, though, on 2 tires. Shane Ewing went for 2 tires. I believe Mike Kelly might have done the same. So there's at least 2 drivers here trying to look back through and see if anybody else went for 2 tires.
Did Kelly speed? No, he didn't. He started going backwards, Pike. I thought the 2 might have sped, but no, he is good. But you are correct. He and Ewing took 2. I mean, it worked for Coop because he's 8th now, so ultimately he was able to take 4 tires. He's sitting 8th. Do you like the call banking on another yellow? Because you're throwing a lot of awful up to chance and hoping that these guys cause another yellow or something, because I got to think for the 32 and the 2, that's the game plan right there. Hope these guys wreck, and then once everyone has to come back down to take 4 tires, you're good to go.
I think you're right. I think that's entirely the strategy you're trying to play. If you take 2 tires and you're trying to get the track position, you're just hoping that within, maybe 5 to 10 laps, everybody will wreck again, and then you could come down and get 4 tires, or maybe not even wreck. Maybe you just need another yellow. It could go either way. So, but you end up losing a lot if we get a long green flag running. You're just hoping that this isn't the last run of the sort of rash of cautions that we've had to begin this race here in Kentucky. So be curious to see what happens with that. In the meantime, we'll take a moment to remind you that tonight's coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series is brought to you by Hippie's Paint Shop. Hippie's Paint Shop has over 5 years of experience spotting top quality custom paint schemes for all iRacing vehicles at a low price. Because after all, at Hippie's Paint Shop, the cost isn't high, just the painter. We take a look at Dwayne Vincent's Parker Store 13 machine, probably the most famous of all the Hippie's Paint Shop schemes that you see here on Monday nights in the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series. And see, they are proudly represented on his deck lid, and that is a black and we'll go marigold, I think is the color I want to use for that. A little bit of orange.
Goldenrod? Someone break out your Crayola colors here. What are we going with?
Goldenrod's a little bit too much yellow. I think marigold captures.
How about mac and cheese? How about mac and cheese? Because that looks mac and cheese to me.
It just makes me hungry. So I'm going to refrain from trying to be hungry and think about the hunger that the drivers here at the front of the field have to win. And maybe the desire afterwards to make themselves a mac and cheese if they so choose. But
nah, I'm not giving you that segue. Sorry, not that one.
It worked out well. It worked out quite well, I thought. But we'll get back to the racing matter here because the lights have come off on the pace car, so we have to be serious, I guess. But in all seriousness, Shane Ewing did take 2 tires, is going to be your race leader when we get the restart on lap 44. Ashton Crowder will restart 2nd, Comstock 3rd. Mike Kelly restarts 4th, the other driver here at the front of the field on 2 tires. Everybody else from here on back with 4. Colson Bermudez, David Washington, Brandon Bowie, Austin Coop, Sean Casto, Dylan Jones. That'll be your top 10 for this restart. Anything you're expecting, maybe watching, trying to keep your eye on here when they come back green, Cisco?
I hope the 32 can get the tires hooked up on this restart. That was a decently long green flag run, and I'm thinking the same for the 2, but the 32 has not done well in this scenario when he's done it in the past. So Shane Ewing, show us what you got, bud.
Ewing in that Rayovac machine has had some points up at the front of this field in the Full Throttle Cup Series this season, but again, no wins, and he's right there, one of the drivers in the cutoff area within 12 points of Lionel Calisto for the last spot. So definitely would love to get a victory. Can he get it going decently well? Actually did get a solid restart as they come back to the green. Crowder actually didn't look like he got the greatest of restarts. Comstock did a little bit better job. Kelly drops to the bottom, trying to get around Crowder here, who's still trying to get up to speed. Comstock tries to go underneath Crowder. Won't quite get the run off the corner, though. He'll slide up the track just a bit. Crowder, I think, will be able to maintain that position, and then it's a free-for-all as they go down into 3. Kelly now alongside Bermudez.
Yeah, Kelly has to worry about that car on the outside, and those tires probably not helping him get through the corner there. And the 14 going to have the cutback coming out of the corner, and it's a freight train up on the high side. 14 able to get a pass done. Now David Washington up on the high side. He's the next one to get it going there. The 44 Bowie also there, and meanwhile they're going to go side by side behind him. Coop and Jones going back at it, so it's 2-1-2 right here as we head through the field. And meanwhile, battle for the lead. Ashton Crowder wants it, and David Comstock is nearly bump drafted Crowder as they end to 3.
Well, Ewing was trying to block Crowder, and Crowder tried to get around Ewing, and then Comstock showed the bumper Crowder, so Crowder had to try and pass Ewing and hold off Comstock all in one move there entering turn 3, but he's done it. Crowder should be able to get around the inside of Ewing and take the race lead away. Comstock might be able to follow, and then Colson Bermudez is as close to the front of this field as he's been all night, and that's been one of the fastest machines. They go 3 wide, a little bit further back in the field, though. That's Kelly, who's falling back quickly with the 2 tires. Coop, who now is back on 4, and then Dylan Jones. Looks like they're both going to clear the 2 machine, and everybody's just going to go for it as they come back to the front of this field.
Yeah, Coop took the Kyle Larson line through 3 and 4 there, way up to the outside. Now Comstock, meanwhile, in that battle for second, will flash up there. He's going to get around Ewing, and the 14 going to try and do the same, get the freight train done on the inside this time. And it's working because the 32 just not able to put the power down the way he wants to. 14 looks like he's going to clear in 3. Is it going to work? Yes, it will. So the that Oakley's Ford is going to go up to 3rd place right now and have the only cars in the windshield be the 42 of David Comstock and the 27 of Crowder.
Be curious to know if Bermudez is wearing his sunglasses at night, though I figure he's probably got an Oakley visor on that helmet anyway, so it doesn't necessarily matter. Going to take that big O14 machine up to the front of the field. Meanwhile, Bowie tried to show Washington a bumper going into 3 to make it 3 wide there, and then thought better of it, so he'll slide back in behind the 98, and they'll just all try and get around Shane Ewing, who, with each passing lap, looks like he's made maybe not the best of decisions trying to take 2 tires on that last pit stop. And then, of course, as I say that, we get the commentator's curse to come in, and the yellow flag appears once again, and Ewing is really going to love the track position he just gained.
Oh, yeah. We've been long enough now where I think they are going to come down and take tires, and it was Nathan Little bringing out the yellow and the orange 41. We'll take a look at the overhead, see what happened. And I have to wonder, Pike, that's not the first time we've seen the 04 on camera when it comes to one of these things. We'll take a look as they come out of 4. 41 goes up and maybe tries to show the fender of the 04, but either way, he got himself spun around. And for Nathan Little, he's going to go all the way to the back of the field. That got a little bit close there. I don't think it's anyone's fault, really. That looked like a racing deal, but either way, Braden Whitaker has had a very long day already, and it just seems to get worse and worse and worse with that with the Cougar on the car for that one.
B-Power trying to get himself back up towards the front of this field, but it just hasn't quite happened for the 04 this evening, and it's been a pretty rough night through and through for Braden Whitaker. So he'll try and regroup here for the second half of this race, but I get the sense that when you've had this much happen, you're probably just getting ready to move on mentally and wait up and go ahead and try and get to New Hampshire as soon as you can.
Yeah, no kidding. And we talk about Loudon coming up here in a week, and very, very, very different racetrack. You mentioned that this track is flat. It's nothing compared to New Hampshire. There is pretty much no banking at New Hampshire. Oh, wow. Look at the fake by the 14. And he definitely didn't have sunglasses on because he timed that perfectly. He almost got me. And the 14, the 98, the 52 going to stay out, as well as the 30 and the 47. Everyone else down pit road.
A lot of movement there. So Colson Bermudez, David Washington, Sean Casto, Nelson Rivera, I believe Mike Kelly and Gio Bermonti were the other 2. So Bramante, though, with a little bit of damage, he'll probably need to come down pit road to get that fixed at some point. In the meantime, at the front of this field, it's David Comstock who jumps out ahead of everyone. I think he might have picked up 2 tires, as did Brandon Bowie, as did Anthony DeBarro. Crowder's only the 4th car out on pit road. Gabe Wood, I think, actually 2 tires as well. He's gained a lot of track position. Maybe Dylan Jones as well. A big mix-up. A lot of new names coming towards the front of this field. I think Scott Walter might have taken 2 as well and jumped a few spots. So everybody's kind of shuffled themselves here within the middle of the pack off of this round of pit stops.
42, 44, 99, and you also got the 09, the 04, and the 28. Those are all your 2-tire tankers. Well, there are a couple more. Trevor Oppolo took 2, as did Sean Boundy. They're further back in the field. So that's basically all the guys who took 2. And talk about a name who we're first time seeing really in the top 10 for an extended period of time. Gabe Wood, another driver out of the Boomtown Sim stable, and he made his appearance in this series, I believe, at the start of segment 2. So Gabe Wood trying to take the EHG car to victory lane here. He's had success in the past in RSR, just not in this series.
So Wood will try and make it translate here in one of the strongest leagues across the sim for Class A racing, the Full Throttle Cup Series. Meanwhile, I think your big story coming out of this caution is Colson Bermudez finally has the clean air in front of the nose of that 14 machine. And to me, that's a bit of a terrifying thought because we've seen how fast he's been in traffic. Now he won't have any traffic to deal with. How much faster can that car be now that he'll be leading the field to green?
They always say, what was it, Darrell Welch once said that his car always felt the best when he was out there in clean air. It fixes every handling problem you could possibly have with the car, something like that. Perhaps,
maybe. I wouldn't necessarily know, but then again, I feel like I'm just too used to co-opetition, but that only applies Daytona and Talladega usually, though we may see that here.
I don't know. I mean, the 42 was given a lot of co-opetition to one of the drivers earlier on. I think it was Crowder, where he was basically just bump drafting him down the corner. And hey, we see it at Michigan, we see it at Auto Club. Didn't expect to see it at Kentucky, to be honest.
That's the thing, and I think we have to take a moment here while we're talking about the subject and talk about how good these drivers are at working with one another, especially within the teams that they reside in. The Aegis Motorsports drivers, we've talked about how well they've worked together all season. The Boomtown guys are doing a nice job putting things together, and even the PowerTech drivers, your Carl Sheds, your Daniel Everharts, they've been able to put things together as of late to come up with some strong team finishes as well, and that can make the difference here if it keeps on going and going and going throughout the season. You know, there's small points here or there, but if you keep on doing it, you end up picking up a spot every once in a while.
Yeah, you do. And I have to say, for the Boomtown guys, they're in this fight. They're not laying back tonight. The 99, you can see right there sitting 9th. His teammate in the 09 is 11th, and Mitch Rollo not having the run like we mentioned earlier on. He's towards the back of this field, but hey, so is the 9 of Trevor Oppolo. So I know he's going to try to make his way back through this field, and I'm curious to see if Mitch can get up front. Talk about another driver who was in the fight for this championship just 2 years ago and even was up there last year as well until he had to step away from the car. So these guys know how to get it done. They just need a little bit of luck their way, and I think DeBarro's more than ready to get a win here.
But he's got to drive his way back up to the front of the field, which right now is Colson Bermudez's point. Restart to come here on lap 54. Pace car pulls off. 14 will try and get the field going. Bit of a late restart in the box, but I think he did a decent job of it. Goes down to the apron to try and claim his stake and stake his claim up into turn 1. He'll jump out by about 3 car lengths to the race lead. Castro now trying to get underneath Washington, who doesn't look like he's got the greatest of drives, coming for that 98 car off the outside lane. So he'll slide back up into third. 1 car sliding, though, into the inside retaining wall. That should bring out a yellow flag again. It does. I couldn't quite tell who it was, but it is the 09 machine of Gabe Wood who has brought out this yellow.
That's 2 commentator curses today. We're not doing well, Pike.
We're only human, right? Go ahead and tell us what happened here as we get the replay up for you.
Yeah, the 09, he goes into turn 1 here, waiting to see what happens, and he's down on that bottom line, and he got a little piece of the yellow line, started to float up the track, and almost pitch perfect representation of what we saw earlier in the race. I forgot what word I was looking for. Copy. That was a copy of caution we saw earlier on. Just got down that bottom line, and James, car doesn't like it when it's down there in the bottom line, or at least it doesn't seem to tonight. And for Gabe Wood, that'll be on the trailer. And what was a very good night for the 09, well, it ends in tears.
Maybe not necessarily tears, but just a large sigh of disappointment, I think, more than anything else. A very, I think, difficult way for a night to end, especially when he had so much speed in that car. We knew it was there, just didn't end up with the greatest moves there and ends up stuck in the inside fence and with a busted car for the most part. So, in the meantime, you've got Bermuda's up at the front of the field, Casto, Washington, Renars up there, Comstock, Rivera, Bramonti with a little bit of damage on the front end, but it hasn't kept him from finding a way back up towards the front of the field. And then DeBarro, Bowie, Crowder, I believe, should round out your top 10 when we do get back going.
Yeah, Pike, and you know, this is going to be one of those cases that everyone's going to stay out here for the most part, except maybe some of the guys in the back coming down and getting 4. But at this point, we start to see these tires, you get heated up when you start on these restarts here. That's more heat in the tire than you're going to get through the rest of the run than just a normal green flag run. So these guys have to be careful not to heat up these tires too much. Once you heat up those tires the way it works in the sim, once you do that, you're just going to start losing more and more grip until the point is those tires aren't really going to work. And I have to think the 14, remember, he stayed out on those tires. Yes, it wasn't a lot of laps, but the restart certainly doesn't help here, Pike.
Because, and I think it's very weird to think about, and it's not necessarily something that seems natural to think about, but there really is nothing that punishes a tire more in the sim than a repeated series of restart like this, or restarts plural rather. And you look at the tire where, you know, give it 2, 3, 4 hard restarts in succession within, 10, 15 laps, you'll already be down to, 80 and 70% tire wear. And you won't have that much to work with. The good will very clearly be used off of the tires, not necessarily because you ran hard for a few laps, but just because you had a whole bunch of yellows and had to get going again and slow down again and get going again and slow down again. And then never mind the tires, you also have to kind of think about the mental toll that can take as well, especially for the drivers at the front of the field who just want to do nothing more than get going, but they can't because they're busy trying to get back going on restarts.
Yeah, and we're pacing behind the pace car here, so I think what we're going to do, James, we're about 7 laps off it, but let's do a quick midway race break. What do you say?
I've got no problem with that, so we'll take a moment to remind you that tonight's midway race break is brought to you by iRacing, the world's leading online racing simulation. Developed from the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service, iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks all around the world. In the fast-paced world of esports, iRacing is a one-stop shop for online racing, with officially sanctioned racing from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, the Car Store, USAC, Blancpain GT, VLN, and more. Working here on lap 57, it's Colson Bermudez who leads the field under yellow. Sean Casto is in the second position at the moment. David Washington finally getting back up to himself after a really weird stretch of bad luck here through the second quarter of the season. Currently runs third. Andrew Farinars is fourth. Nelson Rivera fifth. David Comstock sixth. Gio Bramonti seventh. Anthony Navarro eighth. Brandon Bowie ninth. Ashton Crowder rounds out the top 10.
Yeah, 11th going to go to Jones, 12th going to go to Shane Ewing, 13th Austin Coop, 14th Braden Whitaker, 15th to Scott Walter, 16th to Nick Silver, 17th to Dwayne Vincent, 18th will go to Mike Kelly, 19th to Doug Ross, and 20th going to go to Lionel Kalisto.
21st belongs to Ross Cato. 22nd to Mitch Rollo. Kyle Barnes sits in 23rd. 24th is where you'll find Sean Boundy. 25th belongs to the 45 of Carl Shedd. Nathan Little runs 26th. Trevor Rapallo sits in 27th. Douglas Wyatt last car on the lead lap in 28th. And then 29th and 30th are Gabe Wood and Corey Wolf. That concludes the iRacing Midway Race Break, and for more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, visit iRacing.com to sign up today. For a limited time, you can visit iRacing.com/World of Outlaws and take advantage of exclusive promo codes to get yourself on the sim with a 1-year membership for half the price. Once again, you can do that by visiting iRacing.com/World of Outlaws. Concluding the midway race break at perfect timing because the green flag comes back out again. Colson Bermudez gets a really, really good jump, and a very, very good jump at that. Maybe 3 car lengths ahead of David Washington, who immediately goes to the second spot. Renars will come underneath Casto, and will try and clear him out of 2, and then you have to go all the way back to Ashton Crowder. And now, 1 car on the wall. Gio Bermonti gets a little bit of contact. Brandon Bowie gets collected. 1 more car got caught up in that. Couldn't quite tell who it was, but yellow flag out once again. Hearing it's Austin Coop in the 6 machine.
And that was an ugly, ugly accident. We didn't get to see a whole lot of it, but we saw the car disappear out of line coming out of turn 2, and we'll bring the replay up here, take a look at the overhead, figure out what happened. And the survey says they got a little bit stacked up around Nelson Rivera. That's exactly what happened. A little bit of an accordion effect stacked up there. 37-44 made contact, and for Austin Coop, somehow made it through that, but just involved in already a huge accident. Not really much he could have done there. And, well, more coinky-dink, and, hey, corner exit 2 again. So that's a lot of them tonight, Pike, that we've had here.
Corner exit 2 being the issue. Trying to see if there's any significant damage on the 6, especially since he is a driver who has been trying to make things happen. And yes, he got a very, very big amount of front end damage. Not really of his doing, though. Just was at the wrong place at the wrong time. But we'll come down pit road and try and get that car fixed up. But it won't be tonight that Austin Coop gets his first victory.
No, it won't. And while we have the opportunity, because... well, we have another yellow to slow us down here. We're going to see if we can catch up with one of the drivers who's, well, parked it for the night, went through infield medical center, came out of the medical center, and then walked all the way across the track. You didn't see him walk across the track because, of course, it's not really possible in the sim, but nonetheless, he's joined us in the broadcast booth, Mr. Gabriel Wood, who's hopped out of the 09, not the night he wanted. But, Gabe, we talk about this corner 2 exit, and it struck a bunch of guys here tonight.
Yeah, and I met it personally a couple laps ago. Gee, I saw it. Cisco, you were right. Night did it in tears. I was really hoping for much more. I thought we had a lot more speed on it than what was showing. I mean, for not running any practice laps, my first qualifying lap where I qualified 17th was my first lap in the Cup car at Kentucky. So I was just constantly learning, and we're probably going to, hopefully if we can get a green flag run there, we were going to pit about 30, 40 laps and try and run to the end. I was really hoping for a top 10. I thought I could pull it off. But 9 ends early, my fault. I could have tried to save it, but I really didn't want to turn it up in front of the rest of the field. And so sacrificed myself into the night, brought the caution out, but it was a 1-car incident. But now I get to do my favorite part of racing and commentate.
Well, we'll work on the mic a little bit, Gabe, because it sounds like you're in 2004, so we'll have to see if we can bring you out of NR 2003 into the modern era. We'll see if we can work on that. But, Pike, he mentioned not turning up in traffic, and because of the incidents we've seen down on the bottom in turns, coming out of turns 2, when you get loose down there, you can't try and save the car because you're going to go straight up in traffic. A lot of these accidents have come straight after green flag starts, and as a result, you can't really do anything other than turn the car into the inside wall and just hope it doesn't bring out a yellow.
I was going to say, it's that and maybe roll out of the throttle and just slide and see what happens. That's, I think, the best you can hope and pray for. Otherwise, it just ends up 9 times out of 10 not really working out all that well for you. So we'll see what happens with some of these drivers. I know there are a few who have been close tonight who have done that and managed to save it, but that's sort of the nature of this track. Kentucky is deceptively tricky to get off the corners from. It turns 2 and 4, they don't necessarily have the amount of grip that you think they should, so you try and mat the throttle down, especially on worn tires. If you don't do it right, that's a recipe for nothing but disaster.
All right, can we try that again?
All right, now see what happens, Pike. We use a little magic, and all of a sudden, Gabe Wood is in iRacing, not NR 2003. See what we can do here at LSRTV.
Well, see, that's what happens whenever the mic is not on the ground and in front of my face. Thought I was talking out of my headset, but I ended up having my Yeti mic. So,
I mean, to be honest, I was very okay with the 2004 references. It's pretty solid music out of that year. Killer's Hot Fest is a personal favorite of mine that released in that year. But if you get a little bit caught up in that, well, you need to fix your mic up and decide you want to try and do a decent Brandon Flowers impression, then I wouldn't necessarily blame you so long as you get back to it before we take the green flag here.
I think we're good to go here. We sounding okay?
Well, of course we are. So,
all right.
We've got lights off on the pace car too, so convenient that you decided, because somebody told you to get back and get the mic on here, that we can get back to talking about racing and get back to talking about the restart, which will come on lap 64. Carson Bermudez will lead them to green, then David Washington, then Andrew Farinas, then Sean Casto, David Comstock, Anthony DeBarro, Ashton Crowder, Nelson Rivera, Dylan Jones, Shane Ewing. Your top 10 in what is, I'd say, a thinning field, Gabe, more often than not. We're losing cars pretty quickly here.
Yeah, but I mean, from what I've seen, being in the car, most of the wrecks were toward the back, so we've actually gotten it down to the contenders. I mean, you got DeBarro back up there after such a long time, so it's going to be an interesting restart here now. Past halfway, the intensity is going to get ramped up even more.
Green flag here comes out. Pretty early jump on the restart box for Colson Bermudez. He'll go off and make things happen. Maybe about 2 or 3 car lengths in front of everybody else. Washington got to second quickly, and then Farinas was able to slide up and go get third. So your first battle on the track, it's Anthony DeBarro and Sean Casto trying to fight for position. Now DeBarro clears Casto. So how about Casto and David Comstock and Ashton Crowder going at it through to turn 3?
Crowder in just his second start in the RSR Full Throttle Cup Series, looking to get it done on the outside on the restart. Haven't seen that done in a while, at least from the driver's seat. Wasn't working out, but that 27, the rookie's got some speed. He's actually going to push Casto down the front straightaway. That's actually going to stall his momentum, and he's going to lose it to Comstock, and now maybe even Dylan Jones as they go into 1.
Jones got a really, really big run there through the center of the corner, got to drive it deep in there, and was able to get in front of Crowder. Now tries to block Crowder, tries to make sure he can't get around him. I think he might have actually slowed Crowder up enough to complete the pass. So Crowder slips back a spot. Now should be back in the, I believe, 8th spot after starting on pole earlier tonight. So 27 might not necessarily be handling well in traffic. Meanwhile, Jones looking underneath Comstock for the 6th position, should be able to get it here out of the corner, and then up at the front of the field, at least a little bit closer to the front of the field, rather. Looks like Farinas and Anthony DeBarro are going to go at it pretty quickly for the 3rd position.
DeBarro involved in that first caution, so the comeback has been completed. He's back up to where he started this race, and now he's going to put some pressure on that 47 machine. Looks like Dylan Jones back there completes the pass on David Comstock. Comstock actually loses now to the 27. So that's going to put Jones right behind Sean Casto now. So Dylan Jones, look out for him. He started near the rear. He's been near the rear for a majority of this race. He started 7th, but he was back there racing with me a couple laps before I ended up getting taken out. So he's coming up through the field now. He's now to the inside of Casto as they go into 3. He's going to slide up the racetrack, but he's going to end up keeping it pinched down. And can he get the run coming off of 4?
Got a pretty good run coming off the bottom. Meanwhile, you've got Farinas and DeBarro right on top of each other in the same way that Jones and Casto are, just a little bit further back. So really 2 battles here for position. Now Crowder going to come underneath Casto. Looks like that'll be settled. So all eyes now on the 99 because he has been hounding the rear bumper of the 47, trying to find any which way he can around Farinas, but just hasn't made it happen yet. But I think DeBarro's got the faster car at this point in the race.
Meanwhile, as these guys settle down for just a minute, we'll update you on your leader, the 14, Carson Bermudez, still in the lead over David Washington. So the driver who qualified in 19th, he practiced in 4th, so couldn't get it done during qualifying, but he's now up there and contending with our majority winner of this year and the patriarch of the ages stable, that David Washington, the number 98 machine.
Those two run 1-2. They've checked out a little bit from Farinas and DeBarro. That's your first really good battle on track. And now that Casto's been cleared, looks like Jones and Crowder have been able to separate themselves a little bit. And it's Casto that's suffering for speed at the moment because he's got about 4 or 5 cars backed up right behind him in that 52 machine. Comstock is there. Rivera is there. Ewing is there. A little bit further back, you've got a battle between Scott Walter and Mike Kelly. That, I believe, is for the 13th position. So everybody trying to sort sort their way through here, especially as we start getting into this green flag run, because if you don't have the setup and you can't run a 20-30 lap stint here, you're going to be in big trouble for the rest of this green flag run until we get another yellow flag.
Yeah, what I was noticing during that run, I mean, I cooked my tires on the first lap of a restart, and it sent me back the entire time. I ended up heating up just about 1 or 2, Fahrenheit more on the right front than the right rear, and it, compared to running it easy in turn number 1. And I just kept losing, but if I took it easy for 1 lap, got it back. So, see these guys racing hard. If they can take it easy, get the tire pressures down or get the tire temperatures down just a little bit, you can get that car equalized. You might be able to make a run up to the front. You can see Dwayne Vincent. He's actually been able to pull away from this little pack here, former Full Throttle Cup Series champion. He's now going to have a run there on Shane Ewing in the 10th spot.
Well, we've got a moment here. Casto's really the only one who's presenting any sort of battles on track, but that's just because the 52 is really suffering for pace at the moment, is not anywhere near as fast as the 8th place he's currently running in would indicate. So while we have a moment, Gabe, can you take a moment to talk about how this track evolves over the course of a run? We didn't really get that many green flag runs in under that stint of yellows before you had your mishap, but can you tell the folks at home what these drivers are experiencing in the sim as we go through this race?
Well, I can already tell you, I made up a majority of my spots. I started in 17th or so, and I made up the majority of those spots because I learned from the Truck Series race. I ran a lot of trucks here over the week. Run the outside, that's really where the majority of the speed was, because you can keep up that speed. Well, in the early laps when there was no rubber on the racetrack, I was able to make some passes on the outside. And then about 30, 40 laps into the race, I tried it again and just lost position. I ended up losing about 4 or 5 positions. So that's the one thing I can notice from the dynamic tracks is that outside lane went away, and you had to run. I mean, me and DeBarro, we were talking about it in our TeamSpeak channel over the radio. It just lost all sorts of speed. You couldn't pass even on the inside because that bottom lane, the banking's so different. You can't pass. There's no grip down there. The car won't rotate. So, I mean, the only way you're going to make a pass on somebody is if they're really slow at the moment, like Casto is, because he's just losing position after position now. It looks like Shane Ewing's actually been passed by Dwayne Vincent. But, either a mistake or somebody who's a lot slower than you. But if you're racing somebody who's really on the same pace as you, maybe like Colson Bermudez in the 14 and David Washington, it's going to be a tough fight to try and even get past them.
And as I listen to you say that and try and mentally project in my head what we could see here in the next 10, 20 laps, especially if it stays green, if what you said is correct, then it looks like what's going to happen is everybody is just going to lock into that second groove, that first one up from that bottom lane in 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and just kind of ride there and hope that you can nail your drive off the corners to get a run on somebody either down the front straightaway or the back straightaway, because that seems like as the tires go away, that's about the only way you can really try and make a pass on somebody.
Well, I can already see it happening. I mean, if you look at DeBarro in the 30, the 99 and the 30 racing each other. DeBarro, that last time by, he hooked it. I'm starting to see it more and more. Drivers coming off of 4 and off of 2, hooking that bottom lane just a little bit with that left front tire and getting the car to rotate. It's almost like, hitting the apron somewhere at like Auto Club. The car, decampers and actually wants to turn. But the 30, he's running just a little bit higher, and look at right here, the car doesn't want to rotate, and he ends up losing about 2 or 3 car lengths.
Not a great run for Rivera off the corner. Meanwhile, watching Casto slide back a little bit further, Dwayne Vincent is the next man in line, trying to get around the 52 machine, who's just really struggled. Meanwhile, battle for the race lead. As we get back to it, you've got Colson Bermudez there, but David Washington, that's a name we've heard more than a few times here on LSRTV throughout the weeks as we've gone through this Full Throttle Cup Series season, and in past seasons as well. Washington's been one of the premier threats to win week in, week out, especially on these mile and a half, and now he comes to the rear bumper of the 14 machine, and might not be too long, Gabe, before we've got a fight for the race lead.
Well, catching him is one thing and passing is another. You could see him get such a run in turn number 1. Let's see if he can do it again here as they come by the start-finish line. Here he goes. He should dive it in. Yeah, he still gets a decent run. It wasn't as good as last time, but he was able to get to his back bumper in 1 and 2, and then in 3 and 4, Coulson in the number 14 machine, he ended up pulling away in 3 and 4. So I think that 14 is just a little bit faster in 3 and 4. And as I say that, looks like Washington pulls it in 4.
Got a really, really good run in 2-3 compared to Bermudez, but I don't know if he'll have enough to set it up or if he wants to try and set something up as they get a little bit racy further back there. Second and third and fourth starting to go at it. That's Freenars and Crowder and Jones all kind of right there in that spot, and I think they're just kind of waiting for one of them to slip up because it looks like Bermudez has been able to stabilize that gap to Washington a bit. It's only maybe a car length, but Dave hasn't really been able to sort of break that barrier and come alongside Bermudez yet.
And look for these guys to start pitting here in the next few laps, I think, because, you know, as I was talking about it, 30, 40 laps, come in, get the new tires. You're going to see a lot of guys try and short pit. I thought, well, it looks like Ashton Crowder is trying to make that move on the 47, but he doesn't have enough car. And I'm actually surprised at the decline of DeBarro. He's now gotten passed by Jones and Comstock. So DeBarro now back to the 7th position. He was running 4th at one point as Jones goes to the inside of Ashton Crowder in 3 and 4. He's going to slide up the racetrack. Can he get the spot? No, he can't, but he's still going to have that inside lane. And here comes Crowder on the outside. The 47. Andrew gets to the bottom side to protect against his teammate Jones, but he ends up losing that outside lane. Here comes that 27. Can he get the run back on the outside as they exit turn number 2?
Crowder got a really good run out of turn 4 and, you know, nearly ran over Freenars as he came on corner exit, but was able to get above the 47. And that's how this really all started. And a lap later, looks like Crowder is going to get the run, gets a huge run there, and is able to clear Freenars, who I think might have gotten loose on the bottom, but he'll lose 2 or 3 spots here. Jones was able to clear him, Comstock around him, and now I think that might be Anthony DeBarro, who's trying to go around the outside of the 47 machine. So it just goes back to what you said a little bit ago, Gabe. You cannot get caught on the bottom here, and if you run that very last groove, you're going to end up in trouble because the speed is not there. It's in the second groove, and it's in the third groove here, especially over the course of a long green flag run.
While we're watching this battle, it looks like Coulson Bermudez is actually pulled away by about 2/10 on David Washington, and actually pulls out another 10th from a 0.414 to now a 0.515. So Coulson in, you know, maybe 10, 15 laps before we see them on pit road for the final time, it looks like he's got the lead in hand.
A good car, good speed. I'll be curious to see if anybody does try and short pit, though. I know you mentioned it a little bit, and as I say that, who's your first taker? Anthony DeBarro, of all people. 99 comes in. Shane Ewing comes in. Looks like, one car nearly locked it up too much. That, I believe, was the 43 of Doug Roth. Nearly got into the back of Ewing on pit entry, and Mitch Rollo's had a tough return here to the Full Throttle Cup Series, but is able to bring it down pit road for service. So that's your first bunch of drivers coming down pit road trying to make things happen. Let's see who comes in the next time by. No takers from the lead on up. Anybody coming down pit road here? Nope, not that I can see. So I think the little group of people might have been your group of short pitters, and if it goes green, they may end up on a very, very good side of the strategy play.
Well, it depends on how many laps that these leaders run. I think I see Carl Shedd now calling to the pits, driver running in 17th, started in 26th with 0 practice laps, so he's steady up and up. But it looks like we see the 28 also coming to pit road, but now 2 laps. If they start running 5, 6 laps, they're going to have a huge lead whenever they come out of the pits because they've got the new tires. But we still got a 50-lap run or just under a 50-lap run to the finish. It's going to be tough for them to hold off. Driver like Coulson Bermudez, especially Anthony DeBarro, because it looked like that car was falling off toward the end of the run.
All goes back to tire wear. How well can you save them? And I think if you come down this early in the run, well, it won't matter. Here comes David Washington to pit road, and I have a feeling that's going to force the hand of a lot of drivers next time by. 98 down pit road for service, so I think it all comes down to Bermudez and when he decides to come down pit road now. But if Washington's down, then shouldn't be too long before Bermudez comes in. On the back straightaway now, working his way through to turn 3, has a healthy size lead ahead of Ashton Crowder, who currently sits second. Will Bermudez bring it down this time?
Oh, he's got to. Yep, he's breaking
he will.
Now.
Here he comes. So Bermudez down pit road. Will anybody else join? I see one other car coming in. That, I believe, is Farinars who comes in. And then Lionel Callisto as well brings the 97 down pit road. So you're right, Gabe. Here comes the cycle of green flag pit stops that you just talked about.
But James, I think the 14 has already lost the lead because it's a 1 second to 1 and maybe 2/10 fall off. You know, at least I was looking at from David Washington. He was a half a second behind, so if he can get off now on pit road quickly, and it looks like he's already done. Let's watch David Washington because here he comes. He's in turn number 3. And you keep an eye on the 14 because he's getting ready to pull off pit road. Let's see. He's coming off of 4 now. He's going to have that speed built up 180, 190 by the time they get to the line. Will David Washington have the lead by the time he gets off, or as we get the cycle of green flag pit stops over with, the 14's on the exit of the apron. He's actually held it, surprisingly.
But for how long? And, you know, given that it takes about a lap or two to get these tires warmed up, how much further can you keep in front of Washington? Really, really nice job by Bermudez to get it back and make everything work. Now, looks like the onus will be on the 27 of Ashton Crowder to come down to pit road. Haven't seen him make the move yet, but we're keeping our eyes peeled here and looking for the 27. But he, I think, is the next one to expect for tires and fuel.
Looks like Garoppolo in the 5th spot coming down to pit road, so that should be the last of the Aegis Brigade. Yep, the 9 car coming to pit road. Or at least the Aegis Brigade, I think Dylan Jones. Yep, Dylan Jones and Garoppolo down to pit road.
So, Jones, Garoppolo, bunch of Aegis drivers who have won this season. Both have victories. Jones at Atlanta, Garoppolo at Daytona. Still waiting on Crowder. He's the last driver. Or one of the last drivers, rather, to stay out on this last green flag run and won't come down this time. He's going to run it and run it for a while, it looks like. Crowder and Nick Silver staying out. Looks like Anthony DeBarro has come down pit road. So, yeah, Mike Kelly comes in, so he'll be one less driver in that bunch. But, yeah, it looks like Crowder, Silver, and Cato, I think, are the ones to pay attention to. They're the ones that have yet to come down for service.
I mean, you can make it a good few laps on fuel. I think about maybe 10 or so laps. So if Crowder can get a caution here, oh, he got one! Oh my gosh! Perfect timing for Ashton Crowder. He's going to be on new tires, and he will be in the lead, hopefully.
Well, the commentator's curse has been in full effect throughout this broadcast of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking at Daytona, or rather at Kentucky. My brain's all messed up already. That's how many yellows
Where
we've
are we,
had.
James?
And that's how well I know my geography. A GOB finalist in elementary school 2 times, can't even tell you what state we're in. So I think that's kind of par for the course on this evening, but we're going to go ahead and pull up the replay here and figure out what happened. But boy, what a break for Crowder and Silver and Cato. They stayed out, prayed for the yellow, got the yellow, made it happen. Big break for them.
And Crowder was slowing down for pit road right as the caution came out, because I was getting ready to say, well, Crowder looks like, you know, he's ended up losing this strategy. But as soon as he went to slow down, the 32, the dreaded turn, exit of turn 2, exactly what I did. Car started to over-rotate, and it just went around. And back straightaway, there's no banking to save you, even in the corners.
Crazy to think about, right? That, you know, it's the same sort of problem all over again, and we talk about it so much, and we try and warn everybody so much, and try and, you know, make sure everyone's got it in their mind that that's something you have to be careful of here at Kentucky. And yet it happens again and again and again and again. It's happened multiple times tonight. We've had a lot of problems coming out of turn 2. So who knows? Maybe we're just writing our own script here at LSRTV, and we can just go ahead and say that things might just happen and talk about them in the broadcast and magically make them appear in, you know, 2 to 3 laps after we say something. I don't know, but that's kind of the way this race has gone tonight.
All right, want to give you a little update. Looks like 6 cars are going to take the free pass, or the wave around. Colson Bermuda, who was in the lead when he came in for pit stops. Anthony DeBarro actually moved up into the 2nd spot of drivers who did pit with that short pit. And then David Washington moved down to the 3rd. Sean Casto, David Comstock, and Dwayne Vincent are your final drivers who are going to end up in front of the pace car and get waved around.
Oh man, does this change everything? How crazy does this make this? And for those three drivers, what can you do now that you have the positioning that you want and the chance to come down and get tires and hold on to your spot ahead of everybody else? And I think especially for Crowder is going to get his best shot to win arguably all season long. He has not had the luck to be there at the end of races like this. So for the 27 to be able to bring it home tonight at Kentucky, get the win and get himself in the playoffs, I could say huge. I think that that's an understatement because it would just be everything for Ashton Crowder.
Well, I mean, it'd be kind of disappointing if he didn't win this race. He practiced in first, picked up a 10th, and qualified on the pole, his first pole in RSR. And he's in the lead with what's going to be 25 laps to go. And he's going to be trying to hold off guys who are arguably faster than him on the long run, but have got 10-lap older tires.
And the experience factor, too, I think that's something else that we also have to talk about, because you look at some of the guys that are going to be behind him. Nick Silver has been around for forever. Tabarro has been around for forever. Washington, Comstock, Vincent, just so much talent behind a very young Ashton Crowder. If he wants a chance to prove himself, I mean, I couldn't draw it better and couldn't give him a better opportunity if I tried. It's going to be on the 27 to capitalize and make it happen here. Take advantage of this moment and seize it to go get a victory.
I think what's going to seal the deal for this race, at least in the short term, is getting a good restart. If he can get a good restart coming off of 4 to take the green flag, he'll be able to hold off and wear out the tires of the guys behind him. I mean, they've already been running hard, trying to catch up, especially Tabarro, trying to make up time on the short pit. He's got about 2 or 3 laps extra from, Colson and David Washington, and the rest of these guys who pitted as well. So if Ashton can stay out front for 10 laps after the restart, or maybe even Nick Silver and Ross Cato in the 12 as well, if they can stay out there for 10 laps, get those leaders who were leading before to wear off their tires, I think Crowder's got this. He's got this in the bag. Looks like the guys are going to throw the caution.
You would think that, but capitalizing on restarts and making things happen on restarts, it seems so simple, but time and time again, we've seen drivers find ways to end up in trouble. I'm still trying to sort out the field and get all of our wave rounds completed, because that caution caught out just about the entire field. We had almost completed the green flag pit stop cycle there, save for Crowder and Silver and Cato. So
yeah, I was wrong. Fourth on back, got the wave around.
A lot of work here on the officials' part to just try and make sure everybody's sorted back up and is in the right position to get this restart here. But as I say that, we're running out of time, coming to lap 99 now, so 27 to go as they cross the stripe. Running out of laps to get it done here at Kentucky.
For this restart, we're going to have 1 lap. Lights are out atop the iRacing.com Ford Mustang pace car. Ashton Crowder is your leader. Nick Silver in the second spot outside of road number 1. Ross Cato, Colson Bermuda, Anthony Navarro, David Washington, Sean Casto, David Comstock, Dwayne Vincent, and Nathan Little, who started 30th. He's your biggest mover so far. He's just inside the top 10.
So everybody basically now, after the wave around there, goodness gracious, all these cars single file in line trying to sort themselves back out. But
did somebody mention NASCAR 2004 earlier?
Potentially. So
single file. Hadn't seen that in a while.
I don't have my Andrew WK on the soundtrack for tonight's race, though, so not quite the same. Or my, Power Man 5000, just trying to bring out all the old artists that made that soundtrack so great. But
let's stop before we get a copyright strike.
I hope not, and I would hope names wouldn't be enough, but you never know these days. In the meantime, though, Crowder to lead them to the green, lap 100 when they cross the stripe. 26 laps left to settle tonight's Full Throttle Cup Series race presented by Gary Mercer Trucking at Kentucky. Big restart for Crowder. He nailed it, and Nick Silver
look at Comstock to the outside.
Comstock jumping way high, trying to make things happen. Cato now trying to get underneath Silver, who did not get going at all on the restart. Crowder jumped out by about 2 or 3 car lengths, and it's Colson Bermudez trying to find a way around Nick Silver at the moment. He gets around Cato on the top side, so 14 and the 27 and the 24 all right there. Top 3 field drives into 3 here for the first time since getting the green.
That 14 is going to have an uphill battle. He gets to the gas early, almost runs into the outside wall, but a perfect run for the 14 at Colson Bermudez. He gets to the outside of Nick Silver, but can he charge it in to stay on the outside of him in turn number 1? Looks like not enough, so he's actually going to try the crossover move. Can he get to the bottom? He does, so a good move off of turn number 2 for the 14. They're going to be side by side for the runner-up position. He's going to dive it in and slide up in front. Can he get it? He's going to clear him by turn 3.
Got a really, really good drive. I don't think Silver got through the corner well at all, even with the outside lane coming in. It just never really quite stuck in the corner, so I'd be worried about Silver. I think he might be destined to drop back here a little bit, especially when you see the drivers that are coming from behind. David Comstock, Anthony DeBarro, all coming in, trying to find positions up towards the front of this field. Comstock trying to get 5th away from DeBarro. Washington right there behind both of them if either of them slip up. And you've got guys like that coming. And now Colson Bermudez to the outside of the 24, trying to make things happen again. He had the 24 cleared, and then Silver got a really good drive in the corner. So everybody battling for positions, and right now it's just everything that Ashton Crowder wants to see. Already out in front by a second over Bermudez.
Oh, look, it's going to get close here off of turn number 2. The 24 almost slid up into the 14. Coming off of turn number 2, but he ends up hanging on. Looks like Colson getting on the radio. I don't think he's too happy about it.
A little bit of contact there, I think, between the 14 and the 24. That's brought Ross Cato right to the rear bumper of them. Meanwhile, absolutely nobody taking advantage of the battle for 5th. Comstock is out in front of DeBarro by a nose, but they haven't cleared each other. And at this stage in the race, that's about the last thing you want. It's a weird paradox you find yourself in. You obviously want to get the spots, but you don't want to spend this much time racing side by side because it just drags you back and increases the gap between you and the driver ahead of you.
Yeah, but at this point, they're all fighting for the top 5 position. I think they realize as Washington almost doors DeBarro in turn number 3, it's getting testy up here for these final few positions inside the top 10. I mean, if you want to race hard for a top 5, I mean, Comstock's right there. You can already see you're 3 cars in front of you, 4th, 3rd, and 2nd. They're long gone. You're not going to catch them by the end of this race, I don't think. You might be able to catch Cato if you're Comstock, but these guys are now racing for that top 5 spot, and to get that stat in their book and get the points as the caution comes out.
I was about to say this is all true, Gabe, unless we get a yellow, and we get a yellow. Once again,
Nathan Little.
Nathan Little. The reason for the yellow flag here. We'll share the replay in a moment, and Gabe will just go through and see what happens. I think Little just lost it by himself because he's already claimed the yellow.
I'll give you a guess. So what happened? Actually, a little bit opposite. Nathan Little actually got tight coming off of turn number 2, hit the wall, and looks like the 28 of, I believe that's Scott Walter in the 28 machine. He ended up getting into the rear of him. And what a job by Braden Whitaker in that 0-4 to get, just split the middle and get past him.
So, Braden Whitaker has just had the busiest of nights, and clearly that has not changed. He's been around, it seems like every other yellow flag, and has somehow managed to keep that car pretty clean throughout all of it. So, credit to him for missing everything, but if you're Ashton Crowder, that's the last thing you want to see, because now you have to come down pit road and defend your position. And we're talking about money stops here. This will be one. And if anybody wants to try and take some strategy to get up to the front and maybe have a hand in this race, this will be your shot.
I'll tell you what, we got 2 cars to focus on these pit stops. You take the 14, I'll take the 27. Let's see what they can do on these stops. It's going to be the final stop of the night. Ashton Crowder all the way in the number 1 pit stall. He's going to have a good advantage coming out, but can he get the lead? Should be 4 tires all around, everybody hitting their pit stalls. He hits it fine. Right sides go up. How's it going on your end? Oh, it's Cato. He takes crazy. 2 tires. Oh my gosh. 2 tires all around for 5, 6, 7 cars.
I told you that someone would try and take advantage of the situation and play pit strategy. Ross Cato is the first to do it. I think Washington might have been there. Looks like, yes, DeBarro, Jones, Frenars, Rivera. Yes, top 6 drivers all took 2 tires and buried Ashton Crowder back, and he'll only be the 7th car off pit road when we get back racing. How about that?
And from my experience, 2 tires, I don't know, for that run, we had about 10, 15 laps of that run. Or no, we had 8 laps. 8 laps.
So
I like the 2-tire call, because earlier in the race, we took 2 tires. Now, that was with low rubber on the racetrack. That was under that first caution where DeBarro ended up getting spun. But the 2 tires did work. It actually loosened the car up a little bit. So that might be, a guy who wants to make a push. Maybe Cato, maybe Washington make a push into turn number 1. The car will be loose if you can hang on to it.
I made the point as they came down to pit road, and I'll make it again here. I think if you wanted to try and play pit strategy and have any sort of shot and putting yourself up towards the front of the field for the end of this race, maybe challenge who might win this race, change the course of it, this was going to be your shot, because I don't think we're going to get another yellow that will give you the chance to do something. This is the one that's really going to shake everybody up. Maybe you come in afterwards to get tires if we happen to get a yellow here in the last 18 laps, but this was your chance. And I think especially Ross Cato knew that. He took advantage of it. But also, the guys that have experience that took 2 tires, that I think is something that's very telling to me. David Washington, Anthony DeBarro, Dylan Jones, Andrew Farinars, Nelson Rivera, and Ashton Crowder there. All of those 6 all have a ton of experience in this series and have seen things like this play out before. So I think they kind of had past races in their mind when they made that decision. And now here we are, and Crowder, who's been cream of the field for a good chunk of this race, along with Bermudez, those 2 drivers have had some of the fastest cars all night, but they're going to be buried in 7th and 8th for the restart.
And I tell you what, Anthony DeBarro going to be sitting 3rd for this restart on the inside lane. That's where you want to be, especially for, somebody who has shown he's had a little bit of speed, but Ross Cato has not been as fast as Washington and DeBarro. And DeBarro's been looking to beat these Aegis guys all year.
Take a quick moment here as lights go off of the pace car to remind you that coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series is brought to you by Joel Real Timing, the official timing software of LSRTV. Whether you spend your time on the sim, behind the wheel, on the pit box, or from the spotter stand, JRT is the go-to software for iRacing timing and scoring analytics. Get yourself a basic download for free or get the pro version today at joel-real-timing.com. So, let's set the stage for you. Working lap 109, going to get the green on 110, 16 to go when they cross the stripe. Cato, Washington, DeBarro, Jones, Farinars, and Rivera are your top 6. They all got 2 tires on pit road. Ashton Crowder led the field before the yellow, took 4 tires. He leads the crop of drivers that took 4. It's him, Colson Bermudez, Trevor Rapallo, who also took 2 but was a little bit further back in the field, David Comstock. Your top 10 for what could be the final restart of the race. Pace car now will turn to pit road and make it happen, and Ross Cato will get his chance to win a race here for the first time this season, but he didn't get the greatest of restarts. David Washington was right there with him, and Cato is not going to get the 2 to 3 car length gap that we see most of the leaders get. Instead, Washington's going to be right there with him as they go into turn 1.
Washington's going to be clear by the time he gets to turn number 2, and he's going to go to the outside for the lead. Coming off of turn number 2, DeBarro's going to slide by front of Jones as they come off of 2, and they're side by side for the lead. Down the back straightaway, Ross Cato trying to hang on to it, but David Washington goes to the lead.
Washington with that drive on the outside lane to make it happen. Clears Cato, and David Washington goes back to the point. Cato now sliding back to second. Anthony DeBarro, who's barely been up at the front of the field for a good chunk of this race, now trying to run down the 12 machine and get the 99 machine up to second. We've got cars back further behind that. 3 wide there. You've got Bermudez who gets contact. They make contact on the back straightaway. Farinars got into the back of the 14. The 14 sliding everywhere. He's got front end damage, and something tells me the 4 tires just didn't work out well for 14.
Oh, he saved that car down the entire back straightaway. What a piece of driving from the 14, who has got to be driving mad. Colson Bermudez is going to be driving furious. But now DeBarro's gotten around that 12 car Ross Cato, who was our leader for that restart. So now he's all by himself to chase down David Washington if he can get it done.
Side-by-side battle here for position. Looks like this is going to be...
sliding up the racetrack.
Cato goes up high onto the racetrack there. You've got DeBarro now in second, Jones in third, and then 3-4 cars there battling behind him. Crowder's found his way back up to the fourth position, and then a big gap there. And then it's Nelson Rivera and Dwayne Vincent and Nick Silver and Bermudez and Freenar's all right there battling for position.
It's your top 5, and then the rest of the field. Past Ashton Crowder, it's a dogfight for the final remaining positions behind the 47 of Fronyars. That 5th place is going to be one contested position here in the next few laps.
Coming down to it, working lap 114, 12 laps to go here at Kentucky. I think it now falls upon Ashton Crowder to go up and run this race back to the front of the field and go try and reclaim that lead. He's had one of the best cars all night. I just don't know if he'll have the time, but if anybody's got the speed to go get Washington, he's the guy I think that can do it, because I just haven't seen enough out of DeBarro or Jones, unless they've been saving something all night, that makes me believe that either of them can run Washington down.
Well, that lap before, DeBarro did catch it, but now that gap goes out about half a tenth. So I don't know what's going to happen here in the next few laps. It's going to be one contested spot for second. If we don't get a caution here, I think it's going to be Washington's race. But if we do get a caution, look for Ashton Crowder, who's in that 4th spot now. That's going to be his only hope for getting his first career victory.
And he's got to get a yellow soon, too. We're closing into that 5-lap window. The Pasoko point of no return, as our lead man here on LSRTV likes to call it, but the point at which, if we get a yellow flag, we will not resume green flag racing before the checkered flag comes out, because we don't have overtime rules here in the sim. We run to 125 laps tonight, and that is it. 10 laps to go now, this time by Washington, still out in front with a healthy gap. It looks like it might have come down just a shade, but it won't be enough. DeBarro's got to find more speed than this. The rate that he is closing in on Washington at the moment is not enough, and the fact that Dylan Jones is trying to take away second from him isn't helping DeBarro's case either.
No, he's doing two sorts of driving, mirror driving, and driving out the windshield. It's going to be a tough race for DeBarro. Oh, Dylan Jones gets to the inside of him. He had a good run. He ended up giving him a little bit of a tap on the exit at 2, but DeBarro goes to the outside. Dylan Jones to the inside, and that's going to allow Ashton Crowder to catch up to him as well. He's going to have one heck of a run. Coming off of turn number 4, DeBarro hangs on to it, but now that's going to cost DeBarro just a little bit of time.
It's everything that David Washington wants to see, and it's been a while since Washington's been to victory lane. I think, if my memory serves me correctly, it might be California back in March. That was the last time we saw the 98 in victory lane. So looking to break a long streak. He had a lot of really bad luck at the short tracks in April and May that we went to, and then was up for contention in the win at Charlotte on Memorial Day weekend and ran into trouble, and hasn't quite been up at the front of the field all that much over the course of the last few races. But we know he's so good at the 1.5-mile racetracks. That's where the 98 shines best, and looks like here, unless we get a yellow flag within about the next half lap, that it could be 5 or 6 laps between David Washington and yet another victory on this 2017 Full Throttle Cup Series season.
James at 98 has not won since Texas. He won at Auto Club. He had a 3-race stretch where he won 3 in a row: Phoenix, Auto Club, and Texas. Then finished second at the short track in Martinsville, and then 3 races outside the top 20. So it was a tough stretch, but now he's starting to regain his form, and he should walk away with this victory. Now, as if we do get a caution, it's that Pasoko cutoff line. It is a complete race. We get a caution now, the race will be over with.
Apologies there on that factual error myself. I knew it was sometime around Auto Club, Texas, that we had seen the 98 last in victory lane, but hey, fitting, I figure, because guess what? It was another 1.5 miles. Now, battle for second is really well and truly on now, because Jones has managed to get underneath DeBarro and tries to grab that position away from the 99. He's got help, I think, from Crowder. I just don't know if it will be enough.
And Crowder's going to start getting impatient because he knows he's faster than these 2 guys, but he can't get around either one of them because it's getting hard to pass. That outside lane's rubbering up. It's gaining grip. It hasn't lost grip like I thought it has, and that bottom lane has not become useful. And, the top lane, just way too high on the racetrack. You lose too much time. So Crowder, he's stuck in the position he is, and he wants to get on that podium.
wants to fight. He needs the good finish, I think, maybe more than any of these other drivers here, because we know DeBarro and Jones have consistently been quick time in and time out and week in and week out, but we haven't quite seen it from Crowder. So it looks like it's going to be a good run for Crowder, but
there he goes.
It depends on what light you look at it in, because you can also sit here and say, you know, yes, you're looking at a top 5, I think almost certainly, but on the flip side, he's had one of, if not the best car all night, him and Colson Bermudez, and I think there's going to be a part of him that thinks that there probably should have been a victory somewhere in there.
Well, he made the easy pass on Dylan Jones, and he's actually got a long-time buddy, Colson Bermudez, there in the 14 coming up behind him as well. So that's your entire top 5. Anthony DeBarro still, he's catching bit by bit, but he's only going to have 2 laps to go. Popsicle sticks in the air this time by, so David Washington 2 laps from his first victory in a couple months.
Been a while. Been weird to think about that we haven't seen David Washington in victory lane for some time, but this is a driver who's been consistently strong week in, week out in the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series, and shouldn't be a surprise here that he leads the field back to the white flag. 1 lap to go for David Washington to break that winless streak that goes all the way back to April.
And we got a turn number 2. It's still a fight back there for that second spot. We're going to stay on your leaders, though. David Washington going into turn number 3 for the final time.
Here he comes out of turn 4, side by side, back for second, but at the front of the field, David Washington will lead them back and claim victory in the Bluegrass State. Washington wins tonight's RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series event at Kentucky. It was DeBarro who managed to beat Crowder to the line for second, and then Jones and Colson Bermudez who rounded out the top 5.
DeBarro ended up getting that second spot by 3/100ths of a second, so it came down to that. DeBarro with equaling his best finish of the 2017 season. 2 second-place finishes in a row for him back to Infineon a couple weeks ago.
A big run, I think, in a sort of, I think, restorative is the adjective that comes to mind in my head for David Washington. I think he knows where he believes the power balance should lie, and in his mind, this is going to be a race that sort of restores things to the way he thinks they should be, which is with the 98 out in front, especially at the 1.5 miles, winning week in, week out.
And the rest of the field just got a huge migraine because Washington's back to his winning ways.
Bit of a terrifying thought, isn't it? So we'll go ahead and take a moment here, and we'll take a breather now that we've taken the checkered flag, and then we'll come back on the other side of this upcoming commercial break and give you your full field rundown and talk to our top 3 finishers. You're watching the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing.
Really enjoy dirt racing. Feels good to get in the car, and we have great cars and engines and things at KKR, so it's nice to drive a fast sprint car.
Couple of separate lines developing, 3 wide action on a turn 2. Craig Kinzer, Casey Kane, and Kieran Pittman going at it.
I think the differences between NASCAR and the sprint races on dirt is just a much different mindset. The way you drive your cars, the setup, the feel you're looking for. I think one of the hardest things to tell as a fan is when you're watching a race, whether it's a NASCAR race, a dirt race, is just what's really going on in the car. With iRacing, you can get the way that the track's changing, which they've done a great job in how the track changes throughout the night or throughout the race, just to try to capture it and let the fans play it and realize, like, man, there's actually a lot going on, and you can't always see that when you watch a race. So I think it's pretty neat. It's, enjoyable for me, but at the end of the day, it's actually much of a simulation, and there's a lot of ways that you can learn from that. And early on, it was neat to look at the Cup tracks that I was going to, places that I had never been. So I think it kind of gives you a head start leading into a weekend, it's pretty real life, and that's pretty neat.
Welcome back to coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking on LSRTV. Here at the end of tonight's race, round 17 in Kentucky has wrapped up, and it's time now to take you through our full field rundown as we look at the final standings in tonight's race and tell you where your favorite driver finished. David Washington comes home with his fourth victory in 2017, and I think maybe more notably, the ninth victory for Aegis Motorsports throughout the 2017 Full Throttle Cup Series season. That is far and away best in the league on both accounts. Anthony DeBarro comes home in the second position tonight. Ashton Crowder had a very strong run all night, but was only able to get third out of it after leading a good chunk of the second half of this race. Dylan Jones comes home with a strong top five, finishes fourth. Colson Bermudez was the other really fast car. I get the sense he'll be a little bit disappointed with tonight's run after leading a significant portion of this race as well. Finishes fifth after getting caught up in a little bit of trouble in that last restart. Andrew Farinars, a solid top 10 for him. He'll finish sixth. Nelson Rivera had a good night that he needed, being near the cutoff line as he finishes seventh. So big points night for the 30 machine. Dwayne Vincent finishes in the eighth position. David Comstock comes home ninth, and then Nick Silver was able to finish 10th.
Just outside the top 10 in 11th, Mitch Rollo with what we thought was going to be a disappointing night, coming back to the Full Throttle Cup Series in almost a year. He ends up in 11th, so he gets a good job. Trevor Roppolo, one of the drivers from that Aegis stable, comes home in 12th. Doug Roth with a decent run in 13th. Mike Kelly, who said he thought he had a top 5 run going, disappointing for him. That 2 machine comes home in the 14th position. 15th is Shane Ewing, Sean Boundy, Sean Casto, Scott Walter in 18th, Ross Cato, Brendan Whitaker in that 20th position.
Last car in the lead lap was Carl Shedd. The 45 finishes in 21st at the end of the evening. Douglas Wyatt was the first car 2 laps down. Didn't have a 1-lap car down tonight. He'll finish 22nd. Lionel Kalisto finished 9 laps down in 23rd, and everybody from here on back ended up in trouble and out of this race early. Nathan Little finishes 24th. Brandon Bowie, 25th. Giovanni Bramante, 26th. Austin Coop, 27th. Kyle Barnes, 28th. Gabe Wood, 29th.
Who's that guy?
Corey Wolf, 30th. Yeah. 29th for you, Gabe. So I guess we would interview you in theory since you're here, but our job is to talk to our race winner. So we're working on getting David Washington and company here. And in just a moment, we'll slide down to Victory Lane and talk here to old 4-time. And as I say that, how convenient that he jumps out of his car with perfect timing and gives us the chance to talk to our first 4-time winner in the Full Throttle Cup Series for the 2017 season. Dave Washington gets the win at Kentucky, and I talked about it a little bit as soon as we took the checkered flag, but I know the way the last few months have gone for you, it's still a league leading high, but man, this one has to feel good after everything that you've been through, especially at the short tracks and through May and June.
Yeah, it definitely has been. We were just talking about that tonight during the cautions and stuff, and I didn't say too much tonight. Like, it's one of those kind of tracks where you have to just be out front to stay in the lead, because if he got behind, I was behind Coulson for a little while there, and the car just wouldn't do anything. I mean, I can get to his bumper, but I don't think the only way I would try to make a pass on him is if I forced it, and I didn't want to do that to him.
Can you talk about how the track changed over the course of the night, and especially as we finally got some long green flag runs, because it looked like everybody kind of settled into that middle groove in particular through the corners, and it just got really, really hard once the tires wore down to make any sorts of moves with these things.
Yeah, it was a toss-up to go like the other guys were doing there. We tried it once where we stayed out with no tires and then tried the 2-tire deal. And, the first couple stops we took 4. We come out in the same spot with my plus or minus 1. But overall, the track was pretty much how it was like last week for me when I was testing it. It's a fun track. It's just the racing is tough because you got to make your passes, you got to plan way ahead for them.
And now we come to a few, I think, interesting tracks in the schedule because they're not really all the same. It's not a ring of 1.5 miles like we had to start the season. You've got New Hampshire coming up next week. That's a mile flat oval. Indianapolis is 2.5 miles of very flat. Pocono is 2 miles of flat track. So you ready to get geared up for a little flat track stint here? Because we're going to get a good chunk of them. Do you like your chances on improving your position in the playoffs once we get to August?
Yeah, definitely. The flat tracks I took a liking to a long time ago. New Hampshire has been one of our better tracks. Hopefully this season around I'll be able to show that. But yeah, all the other tracks I'm looking forward to. I've been practicing a lot with them. We should be in the top 10 hopefully. We'll see how pitch strategy go and the cautions fly if we're up front at the end.
I know there are a lot of people that make it happen for you, Dave, so go ahead and take a moment here to give your shout-outs and thank yous and congratulate who you need to for making the run on this 98 car tonight possible. Yeah, big shout-out to Andy on the box tonight. He did a good job making all the calls. Julio for putting this group together. All the guys at Aegis, heck of a group of guys. All the guys in the top 10 tonight. It was a fight. Tabarro, Ashton. The race could have went a couple of different ways, but it didn't. But I'm kind of happy for that. But yeah, everybody at LSR, you guys for broadcasting this thing every week. It's a blast. Thanks for the time, Dave. Congrats on win number 4, and we'll see you up in New England 1 week from now. Thanks, guys. There's your race winner, David Washington, and from Victory Lane, we slide down to pit road and get to go hang with Anthony Navarro, who finishes P2 tonight. He is with our Gabe Wood.
Anthony Navarro down here after a second place run, 2 of them, 2 in a row in the past few weeks. Started at Infineon, now here at Kentucky. We went from being teammates, and I thought I'd have a good shot at the top 15, but you end up pulling it home for Boomtown, and you get a second place finish. Congratulations.
Thank you. Well, I said to the guys in the booth last week I'd be getting an interview this week, so I guess I was right there, and we're just 1 place short again, which, I mean, I'll take it. Let's get some forward momentum going. After our little spin in the beginning, it's a really good comeback for the team, and we're just going to keep building on that and head into the chase on fire from the summertime.
Now, unlike some of the guys who stayed up front during the entire race, like you said, you did spin out early. You had a little bit of damage. It didn't affect you too much, but you had a first-hand look at how to pass as the track was changing. You could use the outside for the first few laps, then everything moved to where you really couldn't pass unless somebody made a mistake. So where did you really find your speed to get back to the field?
Coming up through the gearbox. Honestly, I mean, you can't, it's once you get settled in, you could be a couple tenths faster than a guy, and just unless you get to the outside of them and you're able to pin them down, you can't get around them, because if they're not going to let you go, you're not going to pass them on the bottom. So
now we saw that you and Casto and a few other drivers, Comstock and Mitch Rollo, actually came down and finished 11th, your teammate, in his return. You guys pitted about 2-3 laps before David Washington. You did get around Washington, and right as the caution came out, you were going to catch the 14, Bermudez. Do you think you could have won this race on those new tires if the caution didn't come out?
Actually, the 14 pitted with us, and he passed me But he was driving way too hard. I was just saving my tires there. I might even let David go because I was expecting to go green to the end. But I mean, I don't know how that damage didn't affect me because the right rear looked like it was about off the car. So I mean, I'll take it for second with that little bit of damage. So I don't know. It just was a great car. I knew going into tonight I had a really good car. Just I wish I didn't mess up going over those bumps in 3 and 4 in the beginning of the race, and we would have had a lot better shot at this race.
Well, Anthony, before we let you go, who gets it done in that Boomtown stable?
Windview Games, couldn't do without them, and everyone should check them out on Facebook. It's a really cool app in the App Store and Google Play, and you could play for free. You could bet a little money if you want to. You just bet on sports and the outcome of games and like. And I want to Jared. He's been on board the last couple weeks spotting for me. It's been a big difference, and having the eye in the sky, having the crew chief. It's just now I'm able to focus just solely on driving and getting my job done, what I'm here to do, and that's put it in Victor Lane. And we're one spot short, which hopefully next week we could gain that one position.
All right, Anthony, congratulations, and I'm going to let you go here, let you celebrate your second top 2 finish in a row. And hopefully this will get you on a little bit of a run toward getting your first victory and getting into the chase.
Thank you.
And now I'll throw it to James. I believe he's caught up with our third place finisher of Ashton Crowder.
Ashton Crowder here down on pit road. First time we've had the chance to talk to Ashton in a while here on LSR TV. And Ashton, I think you can look at this race in 2 ways. If I'm in your shoes, you say, you got a top 3 and a really, really strong finish, but there's also the side that I think we know is there in you, and that you had a car that probably could have won this race in different circumstances, and it just didn't happen tonight. So where do you fall in the glass half empty, glass half full of this, and what do you do with that going forward?
Well, I know what lost me the race was not taking 2 tires on that last stop. If I would have taken 2 tires there, I definitely know I would have beaten David Washington, because he was nowhere near as quick as me on long run, short run, anything. So if I would have taken 2 tires there, I definitely would have beat him, but I got stuck behind all of his teammates, and they raced for him, and they don't give anybody else any other room, so you can win the race and pull away. But yeah, 3rd place, I guess, is good when having to deal with all of that, but just wish we could have gotten the win, doing so good all night.
We talk about a lot of these drivers around the cutoff line and people who don't have wins needing just that one good run to really kind of kickstart their season. And you have that now. So do you have any sort of plan to try and keep the momentum rolling as we get ready to head to New Hampshire next week?
To be honest, not really. Just kind of out here, just trying to get used to the Cup car a little bit more for the Pro Series that's coming up, and I think October, November. But definitely the rest of the season, just going to try to get as many top 5s and wins as I can, and hopefully make it into the chase. But, that's the number one goal.
I know there are a lot of people that make it happen for you, Ashton. So go ahead, take a moment and send your thank yous, your shout outs out to the crowd. Who makes it happen for this 2017?
Sadly, we only got 3 sponsors, or really only 2, but we got Tallarico Signs and Designs, Real Picks, and Real Spill. And a huge shout out to Tanner Tallarico for spotting me and crewing me tonight. Really kept me calm for basically the whole race. So big shout out to them. Big shout out to you guys for putting on such a great show.
Well, thanks for the time, Ashton. Congrats on the finish, and we'll see you in New Hampshire next weekend. So we leave the land of bourbon and thoroughbreds and horse racing and horsepower and take off from there and head up to the home of Chef Andy's Lobster Rolls. New Hampshire is where we'll be next week in Gabe, and it's a flat track. It's a tricky track to get around, but puts on a good show, I think, more often than not.
And it's going to be another race where the outside lane, the middle lane really, is going to be key. And if you can get a run on the inside lane, it's a little bit better here, at a mile and a half. But you're going a little bit slower. If you can get the car rotated at somewhere like New Hampshire, you're going to be set. So it's going to be a one-groove racetrack really for most of that race. But once it starts rubbering up, I'm looking forward to see who can adapt to the changes and who can get to the bottom. And I'm going to be excited to run that race. And
I think more importantly, who manages to I think take a short track mentality more often than not, because the way New Hampshire races and the way you get your starts at New Hampshire, if you can run a modified well, you can run a late model well there, it translates very, very easily to a cup car. I think more easily than you would find at a lot of other tracks in the schedule. So a little bit of short track skill will come in on the Magic Mile, even though it's not technically a short track itself.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few tracks, but that can really take this name, but it's it's kind of an opposite. This saying it's a short track that thinks it's a super speedway. Well, that's a 1 mile speedway that thinks it's a short track, because it's the exact same mentality. I mean, it's really just a stretched out, expanded Martinsville. You have to get a good run down the straightaway, get up to speed, and then get on the binders to slow the car down and get it to rotate. Because if you can't do that, you're going to be riding in the back.
It's a challenge that all of our drivers will have a week to get used to. So we're going to go ahead and close out tonight's broadcast of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking on LSRTV. But remind you, we're back same time, 9:35 Eastern Daylight Time, next Monday night from New Hampshire and the Granite State. But for now, we'll conclude our coverage for tonight by thanking a whole host of people. So for my colleague up in the booth, Gabe Wood, and one of our competitors too, thanks for the action, both on track and up here in the booth. For Cisco Scaramouza, our lovely and talented producer who double dutied and was on the call a little bit earlier in this evening. For John Abbott and Doug Atkinson at Real Sim Racing, who administrate this series and make it what it is on Monday nights. And for Laura Lawson, DJ Lyon, and Evan Pasoko at LSRTV, I'm James Pike saying thank you for watching tonight's broadcast, and we will see you all in New England next Monday night.